Fuck. All right, we're rolling.
Rolling.
Planet P
Presents.
Cult and Culture Podcast.
Welcome to episode 20 of Cult and Culture's podcast. I'm Justin Pearson.
And I'm Luke Henshaw.
This episode has two friends of ours from the band Filth is Eternal, Lisa Mungo and Rah Davis. I've known both of them for quite a while, and it was kind of crazy. I guess like my view of the band, it just has like so much positivity to it. Everyone in the band, and it's pretty wild because they're called Filth is Eternal, and they're like they play like this nasty music, but they're like the most positive, loving, fun, caring, cool individuals, and it was just wild. But so after we recorded this podcast, I went and saw them play that night here at the Soda Bar, and it was weird, to kind of reflect on a lot of stuff we talked about, but also to see them play. Like when you see a hardcore band or a punk band or something that's like kind of nasty or plays like like brutal music or whatever, there is this sense of, I don't know what the right words would be, but it's like it seems aggressive and negative and like there's like despair, or I don't know, like it just seems like harsh, and like a punk rock kind of way, like very harsh situation. But it was like everyone was smiling and laughing, and it was fun, except for they had a PA problem there, which that's on Soda Bar. But for the most part, it was like everyone was just having a great time, and it was kind of cool to see that.
Nice.
For me, I guess I'm always used to you get in the vibe, and you just have this. I wish I knew what the right words were to explain it. Just this intensity that, and not that they weren't intense, because they definitely were. But there were parts where like the drummer smiling and stuff. Where for me, I'd be like, whoever I'm playing with, like, what the fuck are you smiling about?
Yeah. You got to mean mug the audience the whole time.
Kinda. Not that it has to be a performance in itself, but like it just to be in that zone and that kind of like attitude. I don't necessarily. I mean, I do crack jokes myself as a singer in a band. If I can, I will. But there's this like sort of sense of righteousness, and you're trying to convey this message, and we're all like kind of getting out this weird sense of aggression, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, we're having fun though, Yeah. It's so weird. But it comes across in their personalities, and definitely when we get into this podcast, you can see how they still have this. I don't want to say still like they're gonna lose it, but they have this sense of like positivity that, for me, I guess I just kind of have trouble relating to that. Mindset. It's like going to yoga and they're like, just love everyone. I'm like, fuck that. Like, I'm not gonna love the cops or like some fucking rapist priest or whatever. Like, I don't know.
Definitely
anyhow,
hate them.
Yeah, I couldn't like share the sense of like overall positivity
that they do,
that they have. But I appreciate it, and I'm glad it exists, and it was fun. It was really nice to be a witness to their performance and have that sort of positivity kind of sitting there with everybody. It was great. It was cool.
Right on.
Make sure you check out the Filth is Eternal album that recently came out on Quiet Panic. And we hope you enjoy this. We'll see you on the other side. Okay, so to start off, though, can you guys introduce yourselves?
Sure. Yeah. I'm Lisa Mungo, and I do vocals in Filth is Eternal.
Rah Davis, bass in Filth is Eternal.
Cool. That's great. All right, what's a wrap?
We're done.
So yeah, I mean, when we talked a little bit, my idea was, I guess our idea kind of was like to start somewhere and have it be a little bit more unique, because you know how it is, like you get interviews and they're always kind of like similar, and especially so the starting point that I wanted to hit with you, both you guys, was like, when someone says what are your influences, that you're expected to say like, oh, the birthday party and PIL, and then they're like, cool, and then that's the answer,
Totally.
But I think that's an important question, and it's an interesting question most of the time, especially like with our one of our previous podcasts, we asked what their like when we had the guys from Def Club on here, we're like, what's your influences? They're like, Nirvana and Gored. I'm like, what in the fuck? I wasn't impressed. No offense to them, but I wasn't impressed. But I think the most important part of that question, or like going deeper into it, is like, why do you like those things? You know, and even with those guys, like, why did you like Gored? It's like, that's a pretty weird thing. But like, you know, growing up, like, yeah, I was really into the Cramps and Septic Death and stuff like that. But like, why? You know, what was it that like put you on that path to whatever it is that we were into, and then what you have become, you know, like, and what you're doing, and like your involvement in creating art and stuff too. So like, I mean, I guess that's just it's a pretty vague and broad starting point,
No,
but
it's fine.
we should start somewhere. Like, what do you know, like,
Like for Love Is a Lie, like what kind of, like, what was part of that inspiration?
no,
What was
no,
the
no. I'm
influence?
just saying you, like, starting
Oh,
out
just,
as like a
like,
weirdo,
period.
you know, musician.
Definitely a
like,
weirdo.
Yeah. And I mean that in like a loving way, but
Yeah,
no,
of
like
course.
not anything like specific to like now. I mean, just saying like in general, like what defined you, like. You know, for me, it was like, I was like into skateboarding, and like it was the Thrasher skate rock comps that was like the sort of segue to getting into like gnarly music and stuff. And I don't know, like, you know, do you guys have that?
Yeah.
Do you guys
We
have that
started
thing?
somewhere. Like when we were younger, like kids, like where did you start with music?
Yeah. Pretty much the same lines of you, like growing up Southern California, being really interested in surfing and skating, listening to a ton of like X Game comps.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, oh, here's like, you know, Ministry, here's Primus, here's like some weird whatever punk or noisy track, and that just like piqued my, you know, interest. And then from there it just snowballed into like punk music, local punk bands, local metal bands, and just, you know, diving deeper from there.
And so at some point, I mean, because I knew you, but like I think you really were on my radar once you joined Cattle Decapitation.
Right.
So, what did you do stuff before that, or did you just?
Oh yeah. I was in like I was saying before, like the first band I was in, it was a punk band, just very like influences ranging from, I want to say like Negative Approach to Poison Idea sort
cool.
of vibe, and then from there wanted to get into something a little more extreme. So tinkered with thrashy ideas because I got into Megadeth and got into like DRI
Oh, cool.
and bands of that caliber. And then from there, that led its way to heavier bands. Death metal was on the horizon. Got into Deicide, got into Morbid Angel. And
And then you
know,
arrived.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, somewhere in between, was also interested in hardcore music. There were like hardcore bands I was really into, like Vision of Disorder and Dead Guy.
Oh, yeah.
And that piqued my interest in like more noisy territory.
Sure.
With the heaviness as
Yeah.
well.
Especially stuff like Dead Guy, you when you discover a band like that, then you can like go back to like Rorschach, and then that'll lead you to Born Against, and then you're
Then
on
that leads you to Power Violence, like Crossed Out and
Yeah.
Spaz and, you know, Lack
Yeah.
of Interest. And it's like, okay, heavier, faster sounding bands, not quite death metal, but also, you know, coming from the punk origin.
So you're like the blasphemous punk or blasphemous metal dude, because they only like it one way, and if you
Yeah, pretty much. I was always kind of in between those worlds.
yeah,
Which I still am. I still am in between those worlds.
and always a bassist.
Started out playing guitar.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I played guitar first. I remember the particular record where I was like, I want to play guitar. It was just strangely enough, Descendants record.
Oh.
I Don't Want to Grow Up.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, I want to play.
Yeah.
I want to learn how to play some songs off of this record.
Yeah.
And then that translated to playing bass. When friends of mine, most of my friends played guitar early on, so then I started playing more bass, and just kept doing the two until I like really found like a love for playing bass.
Oh, cool. That's great.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I mean, I didn't even know. I feel like we're gonna learn more about each other.
Probably.
I'm just like, for me, when I was really young, my grandmother was a concert pianist professionally, so I just remember being like pretty much a baby and like sitting on her lap, and she's like, but she could just play, like Rachmaninoff and Mozart, just anything, put it in front of her, and that was a really interesting way to start. But also my parents were musicians in a band together. It was country, kind of like country folk with like a little bit of prog. And
Wow.
Yeah. What is that? Like what?
That's a
Right,
cool-
totally. I don't even know. So it's, in some sense, there was like very much paying respect to like Patsy Cline, like old school like storytelling folk like country. And then on the other hand, my father loved prog music, so they would have these like they would write these songs. They were all originals, but they would perform and they'd go out and tour and stuff. But there's always this little progginess, like kind of that would find its way inside the music. In my first concert was Jethro Tull.
Wow.
And
That's a pretty rad first concert.
it was, I can't even put into words what that felt like, and I think I've just been a prog girl at heart ever since.
Nice.
And my father,
Wait, is Jethro Tull considered prog?
They're
Yeah.
they're
Really?
yeah.
I would say
so.
so. But my dad was also in a Dream Theater and Mr. Bungle, like just everything. Mr. Bungle, just anything abstract that's fun and progressive. But and I know there's much more out there, but that's kind of what I started with. Was whatever Dad had in like the room, and he had this whole music dedicated to vinyl. He was collected a huge amount of vinyl records, and but yeah, rock and prog, and I'm just trying to think what else. But those are my earliest influences. So everything from classical to country to.
But you were so close to it.
And then they were musicians, so yeah, they would have band practice inside the house.
That's rad.
And there were a few times when I was younger that they pulled us on stage. They like taught us like, 2 and 3 part harmonies, and we'd get up and sing with them and stuff. I mean, it was almost
like
like
what
a
age?
mighty wind a little bit, but
Yeah,
like,
how old were you around then?
I mean, I was probably singing 3, 4,
Wow.
Whoa.
5, like that's when they first started pulling us up, and we would do like the family thing. It wasn't quite a mighty wind, but it was when I saw that movie, I was like, oh shit, there are some similarities.
Really funny.
But yeah, so music for me just started like that, and so it was probably up until like 9, 10 years old, and it became very challenging, of course, for them to have a family and be balancing that with music, and so they kind of switched gears. And then, as I got older, I just sort of got into. It was never anything abstract or like obscure or cool or whatever. It was just whatever I could get off the radio. But I went through many phases. But then I just went on this like huge like just trip hop phase at some point. And then I started really getting into like, back then it was Massive Attack and, Tricky and all this Portishead and...
Yeah.
I could go on and on. My influence. The point of this is my influences are so all over the place.
Yeah.
It's hard to like pin it down.
Especially
but
as a vocalist, and you're saying those, I'm like, what the fuck? But that's great. That's
it's
rad.
so weird. Yeah. Like an ELO. I don't know. I could just go all over.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I mean, kind of same as we were saying before. Had a lot of those similar influences as you, but as far as hardcore punk, that's hardcore punk metal. I really like gravitated towards it from like skating, surfing, and just more abrasive music, and just trying to amp it up the like tonalities of that sound over time. But also grew up listening to soul and country, because that's what was like playing in the household growing up, and developing like a sense of like harmony and melody early on. But then also,
and you had support from your parents.
For the most part, yeah, because like my dad played trumpet. My dad, before I passed, he passed when I was 5. He played trumpet, so I would hear him playing and remember being like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. He's playing these like interesting licks. I'm sure a lot of that like translated to like my musical language over time, but I was also still more interested in like brash, esoteric sounds. That's just like where I gravitated towards.
I wonder if that's also too like, I mean, I think maybe there's some kind of evolution of things, like, maybe not, I don't know if this is right, but like you think like the 80s kind of late 70s, early 80s like brought in a lot of like pretty absurd forms of musical art,
absolutely.
And I wonder like, I mean, I guess the world just was changing, and it was right for it, and now maybe it plateaued. I don't know if it's gonna get the absurdity stuff. You're just like, whatever.
Yeah, that's the whole phrase of everything's been done before, which is kind of true, but you can also like dive deep and find some of those like interesting sounds.
Oh yeah.
From different bands from all genres of music.
Yeah.
You just really have to search now. Whereas I felt like before, there was just an overabundance of music. Record companies taking chances on different types of music.
Yeah.
You don't really have that. You haven't had that in probably 25 years.
Thanks to capitalism, everyone's trying to figure out what's going to be the next
Exactly.
dollar.
I guess being inside of the music industry in different ways, being close to like, you know, I guess engineers that create, you know, these instruments, and I keep thinking that innovation is gonna be the catalyst for the next thing. Like, you know, like when they, you know, like the TB-303, when it came out, it created a whole genre of music. Someone tapped into that and they almost repurposed it. I kind of feel like, I don't know, I sense like we're on the verge of that happening again. And whether that's through like, I'm going to sound like an insane person, but through like augmented reality or like something in there is going to happen and we're going to be able to tap something and music will change again. And I think new breath will be brought into it and we'll have new life in that way. I know that sounds out there, but
No.
No.
that's where I think it's going.
I'm hoping
like,
for
in the
that,
next
Yeah,
10
I'm hoping
years.
for that too, just because of like the state of things.
Yeah.
Like how the world's like changed drastically just in the last few years. You're giving people are having like a different perspective on their reality, and like their normalities are being like shifted because the world's changing so rapidly.
So like they're open for it.
Yeah,
They're
I think
open
some
for
people
this
are
change.
open for it,
And some people aren't.
and then some people are just gonna have their heads.
But either way, you
in the
don't
sand.
have a fucking choice in the matter. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think that
Absolutely.
is kind of wild because I'll trip out like on stuff that Luke's creating. Like he'll do stuff with like a whole string section, and there was not a single actual string in the studio, you know. And I'm like, oh, that's great that is an option now. Where like, you know, 10 years ago it probably wasn't an option, you know. And now it's like more people can create things. So there's more people that are maybe going to provide that push to like some kind of newer level of technicality or ability to do something or whatever. Yeah, it is pretty wild, but it's weird too though to think about like what you guys do now, you know, with your current band. It's like when I was like, so it's funny to listen to both of you like kind of coming from this sort of like, and I could be wrong, I may be reading wrong or whatever, but like it seemed like a little bit more supportive and positive. So like for me when I was growing up, and maybe Luke might be able to relate, I don't know where you're on the spectrum, but when I was growing up and was like into skateboarding and then got into punk, it was like mainly my dad. Before he died, he was just like, fuck this, like you're gonna become like Sid Vicious, you're gonna be a heroin addict. And I'm like, hey, what? Like I just think this shit looks cool and sounds wild and like it's crazy, and I'm into it. And I'm like, I'm not gonna be a drug addict, you know. My dad wasn't a drug addict, but he was an alcoholic. But I was like, you know, I don't want to be like that. I just want to be into like wild shit and skateboard, and that was it. But it was him like not letting me do it that made me do it, you know. I was like, oh, this is happening no matter what now. And I wonder if like, you know, if he was like more supportive or passive, like if I would have just been like not that, it wouldn't have pushed me as hard.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's kind of a mixed bag, you know. So like, coming from a musical family, I experienced firsthand the struggle of that, and there was a lot of things that fell by the wayside.
Struggle like
the struggle of trying to, in their case, it was the struggle of trying to do music and have a family, everything. But things slipped, you know, and there was some pretty terrible things that happened along the way in my youth, you know, because of that. There was an isolation and there was an absence of presence, and so there was a reason why I was turning to music, and in some cases turning to darker and darker music and like heavier and heavier music. It's there was support, but you know, in my own mind I had to grapple with the fact, like watching that in front of me and watching that kind of fall apart. Is that something, you know, that was my experience. And then when they started shifting gears, it was like, you can do music, but it became a different message. Look how hard it was for us to make this work. And so yeah, I just want to like be clear that it was all sunshine and roses for a while, and then that definitely changed by the time I was like 9, 10, and went quite the opposite in the other direction for a while. But go ahead, what were you gonna say?
For me, I think the initial support was because I grew up in like Logan Heights neighborhood of San Diego, and you know, as you know, back then it was actually pretty rough neighborhood. ridden, just like crime infested type of neighborhood. So, instead of going in that direction, which could have easily happened, like just by hanging out at the park, my mom was totally okay with me like gravitating towards music, even the music that she didn't understand.
Totally.
She was just like, hey, this is something that's a positive outlet for you, regardless of how like angry, cantankerous, whatever it is, as long as you're not out here in these streets, and I actually do thank music a lot for like saving my life for a lot of different reasons, not just from that perspective, but just like going through like different dark periods in like middle school and high school where I was like, oh, I got this thing, even if I don't necessarily relate to the message, sonically it gives me life and like gives me a will to like either create or just like keep going another day.
That's funny because I always thought that too, like as much as like my mom was kind of like not the best at parenting, she was always like, you and your friends, like she just was more concerned with like, why do you have a fucked up green mohawk, that was like you're embarrassing to be seen with, not like your music sucks, I mean, I don't think she liked the music, but that was neither
it was
here
more
nor
about
there.
this the aesthetic of
she's
it.
Kind of like, can you just present yourself like a normal human being? And I was like, no. But it is kind of crazy because she supported me as driving me to band practice and stuff. But it was crazy for me because when I was 15, I went on tour and stuff, and I remember like most kids in high school at 15 were concerned with like what they were going to do on a Friday and Saturday night and like getting fucked up and like doing drugs and getting pregnant and whatever, and I was just like, I need to get up to Seattle on tour and like play this show, and
I was right there with you. I was 17 years old, like went on my first tour. Surprised my mom. Thanks, Mom, for like letting me go on tour, but she knew that was like something I really wanted to do. She's like, hey, you can take care of yourself. Like, I had decent grades in high school, so having being a decent student gave me the ability to go ahead and like do something I really wanted to do. I didn't know shit about touring, obviously. I'm still like developing. But it was nice to do that. It gave me like, I knew from there, like I'm either gonna like this or it's not for me.
Were you born here and mostly live? Where are you from? Like,
I was born in Chicago, grew up in Phoenix, but I moved here when I was 12.
Okay.
And so like that was the jam moving here, because instantly like started hanging out with like weirdos and punks, and then started, we started our band, my first band, when I was 15, so that was really important. But I remember going on tour when I was 15, and like we played in Santa Barbara. I didn't know how to tour either, and I remember we showed up. We had come from somewhere, and we showed up in the morning, and we were like, I remember just sleeping on this sidewalk outside of this barn that we were playing in, and I woke up covered in ants, and I was just like, and I was 15 years old, and I was like, but it didn't matter.
About right.
It's like, that's cool. I'm gonna just wake up and get the ants off me, and then I'll play the show this afternoon, and then we'll drive back home.
Sure.
Right.
And I was 15. So.
And did I mention I was 15?
I mean,
that's what you do when you're 15.
Expectations. The fact that I was like, it was fucking crazy at that time. Like that I was out doing that thing. So. I think that's important, and I think punk or hardcore or whatever subculture, even metal and stuff like that shit saves younger people's lives. I think it's really important.
Is that a huge part of why you guys started like 31G? Like, how did that come to be? Like,
wait, you're asking me the questions now?
Yes. That's what I do.
I mean, with 31G, I think it was like that was fucking crazy too, because it was like we were starting to release records, and I realized like, oh, these other younger people that are releasing stuff like aren't doing a very good job. They're changing our artwork, or they're not paying. They're like, they just sold 500 copies of a record, and we didn't get paid anything. Like, we didn't get anything, So I was like, I think I can do it like as bad as them, or better.
Or better.
And then and again, like I was like, I'll start a label by all these weird means. Like, I was like, I just started community college, so I was getting financial aid. So I was like, I'll just take all this financial aid money.
Oh, that is so sweet.
I love that.
And I was like stealing shit left and right. Like
whatever it takes.
Yeah, we had friends that worked at Kinko's. We were like, all the covers for the records were free. Mm-hmm. Like, we would just steal everything from Kinko's. And like, I mean, I used to do sketchy ass shit to start a record label, stealing fucking postage stamps, like whatever I could do,
It's kind of the whole by any means,
Yeah,
right.
sure.
Yeah.
But back
love
then
that.
too was a little bit different. The landscape was different because there was this magazine out called Retrieval Inc. Like Retrieval Incorporated, and it was just a zine, like a punk zine, that just told you how to scam and shoplift and steal and all this shit that was like stealing from corporations. So there was like a little bit of moral values, I guess, in the crime, stuff. But that was like what everybody used, like as a device to sort of survive,
right?
As punks.
Absolutely.
Or whatever.
I just like how it just like pokes a hole in the construct. Like, here you go.
Yeah.
This is how you.
It's the whole stealing from thieves, like Robin Hood tactic.
Sure. But now it's crazy too because like a lot of our friends grew up from punk and hardcore and whatever, and now they're like, oh, I work for this corporation, or like, yeah, well, they're like they've infiltrated, I guess,
Yeah.
And so they're kind of like hooking up bands with like
It's really wild seeing that sort of thing throughout my like lifetime. It's like, oh, now you're in a cog in a machine.
Yeah.
You're actually able to like shift some things to benefit either yourself or your community or your friends,
or like seeing your friend's band like in a major motion picture. You're like, who's this music supervisor that just picked like whoever, like whatever band to be like in that film, like, and they got 100%. Paid, like, that's sick, it's great.
Yeah, I love that.
It only took like 30 years or something.
It takes a while.
Yeah, that's
things
true.
don't happen overnight.
That's really true.
Yeah, we had a similar experience when we were in my old band Ox. He was Ox's Gored, but at one point Brian was like, "I'm just starting this thing, Void Assault Records." He just so he did that for a while and was trying to help, basically just help friends, you know, in Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
But again, it is a lot of work. It almost you have to put a lot of time and energy and effort into it to keep it going and to sustain it. But he did have a few releases that he was able to help people with, and it just feels really good to be able to do that.
So that's okay. Since you brought up Jesus Ox's Gored, that was crazy because that was my introduction to you, and it was so okay. So Retox did the tour with you guys,
right?
And I instantly was tripping out on you guys. I mean, musically it was great and everything was rad and your performance was awesome, but you guys were also positive, and I was like, what the fuck are they so positive
about? We were so fucking dead inside. Like we had to be positive to the outside world because otherwise, like, you know what I mean? Like, it was. I just remember during that period of time, I was going through so much mental health shit, and then also that's when I was transitioning to be sober, and it's kind of cliche sometimes to talk about sobriety, I feel like these days, and when it involves being a musician, etc. But it was a huge. I don't know, that whole experience was pretty intense. And I just remember that tour, I think, was one of the early sober tours for me. Uh-huh. And I was just it was day by day, just waking up and just being like, I just got to get through this fucking day.
Wow.
So everything you saw was bullshit. Is what I'm trying to fucking
Fake it
say.
till you make it.
Yeah.
It was all fucking bullshit. And it was intense. But and also, I think, what I did learn from that experience, too, was a couple things. But first of all, just trying to fucking, like, make the best of that moment and be in it. Because, shows are going to be great. Shows are going to be, as far as attendance, it goes all over the place. Yeah. That's tour. I know bands that people are fucking in love with now that had years and years where they were playing to the other bands and maybe, like, 10 kids.
Yeah.
And, after a 14-hour drive. And then there's shows that kill it, but I just learned on that tour, like, I've got to try to keep a good fucking attitude, because otherwise this isn't gonna work.
Yeah,
it's just not gonna fucking work.
Well, I guess, like, for me, because I agree, and I thought it was a trip to, like, see your positivity, even though you're saying it wasn't quite sincere.
I was pretty much lying to you the entire time about how I felt.
I mean, every day I was like, how in the fuck is she so positive? This sucks. Because I remember the agent kind of like shit the bed with that, and I was like, there's a few shows where I'm like, this shouldn't even happen, but we're here and we got to do it, but I remember, like,
to get through it,
making the best of it. But you also, like, really, your bullshit that you were portraying, it really did inspire me to be like, you know what, fuck it, we'll just do the best, and, like, for what it is,
just try to get
make
through
the
it
best
and be
of
positive.
it.
No, Totally, and that's what I'm saying. It's like fake it until you make it. So I was really just like trying to fake this like shit. I was just like, fucking stay positive, bitch.
But we should have all just sat there and been like, fuck
We
this.
should have all just been like, fuck it, and then like,
But then
like,
killed it, you know, collectively. Like,
right, kill it at the
yeah.
same time, set it on fire.
Yeah, I guess.
We could have done that. I do think though that from that I did take that, and moving forward, I do apply that. You know, there's, like I said, there's going to be a night where I don't give a shit if there's 10 people or there's 1,000, right? I don't give a fuck. We've all done all of those different variations. But what I care about is the energy I get off.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And if you're playing a room and it's 10 people and they're right with you, that's great.
Yeah.
But if there's just
Like when you're a support for a band and the audience like doesn't give a flying fuck about you.
Oh my god.
That is the worst. I think it could be 10,000 people there that all just are like
it's so
indifferent.
they're like, get the fuck off the
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah, we're
so
clearly
we can
not
see
here
the
for
band
you.
work.
Yeah, that's the
It's,
worst shit.
That is definitely disheartening.
But everyone will everyone will experience that at some point. And so in those moments, I do tap back to that bullshit energy I was creating. And I try to like keep that going, and you know, and just try to enjoy something and be in the moment, be present.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna get something will fucking
Totally.
come of that. Or it's all horse shit and I should just be negative all the time forever.
Because we had Martin Atkins on a podcast, and he was like, he was in like every cool band possible.
Yeah, Pigface, Killing Joke.
And he wrote books, right?
Yeah.
And just
I mean,
talks
he's a
about
brilliant,
tour and
But
Tour Smart. It's a
he
great
had
book.
the Tour Smart book is great. Yeah, he did a lecture on that, and I remember like him talking about he always would say this thing. It's actually had it in a few of his talks where he's like, if you play a show and you can make 2 new fans, then you're successful. And I just was like, why 2? You know, and I was like, man. And then I was like, he was like in the coolest lineup of PIL, like he was in Ministry, like, and he's just saying 2. Like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And then that was like that. That set with me. I think I probably thought about that. Maybe like half of the days that I've lived since I've heard him say that. Like every day, I'm like, just 2. We're good if we get like 2. You know.
Those things that are important sustain.
Yeah.
And that is just going to keep hitting you over. Now I'm going to be thinking about that as well. And I was familiar with Martin Atkins, but it's been a second since I've really thought about Tour Smart and everything. But there are some little pearls of wisdom there. And I think for me, reconnecting with the community is important right now. And if there's getting back out and touring after being not doing this for 3 years, and then I don't know how you feel, but I don't care if, like I said, if there could be 10 people at the show, fuck it at this point. I just want to reconnect with those people. And if one person, for example, in San Francisco, it was kind of mellow, right? But this one kid who was raging out front.
Oh, yeah.
They were just going crazy. He came up to me afterwards and he's like, yo, next time you come here, there's this place and there's this venue and it's like totally punks and it's like crazy and it's fucking walls bleeding and shit. And I was like, sign me up. I was like, that was the guy, the one of 2 I needed to talk to and meet in that venue. And next time I'm reconnecting now with the kids that are excited about this shit now.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
So if you wouldn't have played the mediocre show, you wouldn't have connected with him to get somewhere else. So.
Exactly.
But there is a silver lining in everything. I mean,
everything.
You know,
totally.
Even the fucking pandemic, there was like we did see changes and things that needed to happen. You know, so
there was a lot that happened during that time.
Yes, that's very true.
I mean, and that experience is probably different depending on
the person.
You've talked about that too.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot. So sorry, I got distracted. I'm looking at what your setup is. What are you guys using back there?
Just Pro Tools.
Yeah, fuck. I mean, that's my response.
What was that?
It's a good response. But...
Oh, sorry. I need to learn it, and I just need to. That way we can, when I'm working with an engineer, we can send notes to each other back and forth. I'm just stuck in like Logic. I can't like.
So I can't use Logic.
See,
I have it on this.
It's weird.
I use it on this, but I just use it as an interface just to put input into here. Because I thought, I was like, I'm going to learn it. And then I start making music and I'm like, whatever. And it's been like 2 years and I just know how to
That's what
import,
happens with
export.
DAWs. You like go, I'm going to fucking learn this. You know, and then you like get into it and you're like, oh, I'm going to go back to the thing that I know how to use.
Yeah.
I don't know how. Do you mess with that shit at all?
It's been quite a while. I used to fuck with Reason quite often.
Reason.
But I realized that that's like almost archaic now. Like No one really uses
No,
Reason.
Or Fruity Loops or something.
Reason has come back. My son
They come
uses
back
it,
now? Okay.
and they update it so much, but he loves it.
They needed to, because a lot of plugins would not work
Yes.
with that. We was running into issues with that constantly. So that's kind of why I went from Reason. I started with Fruity Loops way back when Fruity Loops was just started. And then got into Reason, and then plugins were not working, so then I got to Logic. And then I tried Pro Tools, and my brain doesn't wrap around it the right way.
I mean,
I need to just like sit down and do what everyone else does. Just get on the goddamn internet, remember? And just learn what we don't know. It's right there.
Yeah, the
YouTube.
University.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we need
Everything you need to know.
Yeah, I'm
is
becoming
right
a
there.
doctor.
Who was the comedian we were just listening
A
to?
mechanic.
Oh my God, fucking Pete Holmes.
Pete Holmes.
Yeah.
Just talking about how now everything you want to know is right here, and how he misses not knowing things. Because like if you don't know it back in the day, you wouldn't just pick up your fucking phone.
Yeah.
You would just like, do you know the answer to this question, to like a human person?
Oh, yeah.
And then he goes, the next thing you know, you're asking somebody, and then she becomes your wife. Like it's just amazing.
Yeah.
It's
like,
a pretty good bit. But,
I fucked it up, but yeah, you guys should Google the comedian.
Well, I'm
and
working
look
on
up
becoming a doctor. He's gonna be a mechanic, and then
exactly.
Yeah.
But it's crazy. Like that stuff is pretty wild. I do these stupid research studies like as a hustle all the time, like for whatever. And I was on this fake this mock trial thing. I'm not supposed to talk about it, but anyhow, it's about this guy that died on a Segway, and everyone's like, the thing was like, he died on a Segway. That's so fucked up. And we're going through all the legal shit, and it was through Zoom, so I could kind of like, but I could whatever Zoom. I got paid. I got to sit at home in my fucking, in my whatever.
I wasn't wearing any pants.
Yeah, I was
but,
totally nude. No, you can see me. I had
Genius.
my clothes on. But I had my phone, so I'm Googling it as we're doing the thing, and I'm like, dude, the guy had flip-flops on? Like, no. Like, because long story, he fucked his foot up, and then he had to get his foot amputated, and all this weird shit.
Oh, shit.
And I was like, I'm pretty sure like when you buy a Segway, it says like, don't wear flip-flops, and it fucking says that, But like, I was Googling it, and then I was like, hey, you guys, like, and then they're like, you aren't supposed to Google it, and I was like, what do you mean? Like, they're like, if you were in court, like, you couldn't just start Googling as a juror, Anyhow, Googling.
Well, I was wondering about taking tests right now, like how much I would find a way to cheat,
Oh,
like
if
in
you did,
school
yeah.
and shit,
Yeah.
like SATs and crap. I'd be like, I'd fucking find a way to like just tap into that shit. Like, how do these kids take tests nowadays? How do they not cheat? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
That's actually a really good question.
Or maybe it's not, but yeah.
Are they lazy at cheating, so the outcome is not as like benefit? Like when we were, back in the day, we had to like be good at cheating.
You had to really work at it. You had to be like,
how can I like
stress.
writing all the shit on?
oh
your
right,
arm
oh
or something?
definitely, like Sharpie,
Yeah.
but like keep the long sleeves, like
Yeah.
Because I don't want to study.
I hate when people like ask stupid questions that they can just look up. Like they'll post like, "Who won the
And then
game?"
you're saying there's the
Yeah,
I'm like-
reverse
you're
of
like,
it,
you have
yeah.
a phone,
Wait,
right? 'Cause
you
we all
just
have
type
this
this.
fucking
Yeah, you just
technology
type
in
this
our
on your
pocket.
phone, and you can't just look it up on your phone. The same phone that you asked a question
I
with.
mean, I feel that way about when anyone walks up to me and they're like, "Hey, where's so and so?" or "Where's such and such?"
Yeah.
You have a phone, right?
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
like,
Well,
yeah.
also-
I'm like, then why'd you like come up to a random person and ask them where something is? Like,
As a
we don't.
band, though, don't you get like asked stupid shit online all the time? Like,
Oh my god.
how do you get the new record? You're like, fucking Google
The-
it or like
Yeah.
whatever.
What do you mean?
know?
There's like 17 ways to get the new record.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and plus we have links now,
Or
link
is
trees and
Is
like,
it on Spotify? Like, what do you fucking just look at it? You know?
Yeah.
The time it takes you to write, is it on Spotify? You could have just looked on
Yeah.
Spotify.
yeah, I don't know.
The amount of times people have asked me, where can I get tickets to your show? And this is like every venue, like
Yeah.
every show that we're playing on this tour, like every city, someone's been like, hey, where can I get tickets
Yeah.
to your show?
Yeah,
or like,
it's always like that.
or COVID, like, how do I get a refund? You're like, the venue? I don't know.
right?
Like,
Why
I don't
you-
live in San Francisco. Like, you can
Right.
probably just contact the venue.
Yeah, I think you should do that.
They
That's
expect you to
awesome.
mail them like a check or something. I don't know. Or no, I guess Bitcoin.
Those are the two
Yeah.
like the two most common things, or
Yeah.
that or like someone, and this is the ongoing joke forever, but people asking you to go to Brazil.
What?
Do you ever get that?
Yeah, but why? What's that? I thought
It's
it was.
just it's always those two things. Are you guys coming to Brazil? Or that just
Yeah.
it somehow gets mixed in with where do I get the new record? Oh, and by
Have
the
you
way, are
gone
you
to
coming
Brazil?
to Brazil?
Have you guys gone to Brazil?
No.
No,
That's
yet.
probably why they're asking.
Yeah,
us to come. Do you ever get that though, where it's like random, and
Yeah.
then just the Brazil
It's
thing?
usually Brazil, but I think for me, I always equate it to.
You've probably been to Brazil.
No, I
imagine.
haven't. I wish I have.
You
But,
haven't been to Brazil?
But I get hit up a lot about it because of I'm in a band with Mike Patton, and I think he's got a big Brazilian fan base, or maybe Dave Lombardo, one of those guys. Either way, I'm like, it's probably them that there's some kind of fan base.
Right.
But I want to go to Brazil. I'll go anywhere, basically, though.
Same.
People are like,
Oh, and that's what I keep teasing you guys with. I'm online. I'm like, let's go to Japan together. Let's go. That's me, the ones that keeps asking Def. I'm like, let's go everywhere together.
yeah, let's do that.
Let's do
Japan's
it.
the coolest fucking place.
I haven't been.
It's pretty.
I have not
marvelous.
been.
Yeah, it
I've been
is
to a lot of places, not Japan.
the coolest place. I think we talked about it before, like going into fucking 7-Eleven in Japan. I'm like, this is awesome. Like the 7-Eleven, there's like, because like there's hot dogs. I think I said
There's
this
hot
on one
dogs.
of
What?
No,
like-
there's
That's
not hot
not what
dogs.
I expected you
No,
to say.
there's hot dogs here, but there's like tentacles and like weird fucking
Yeah.
floating
Oh,
things and
okay.
shit.
You just
Okay.
like eat ramen.
You're like, what is
at
this shit?
7-Eleven.
Like,
It's great.
yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have to make this happen. So
And people at the shows are very enthusiastic. You're like, fucking, this is how it could be on the rest of the
well, it's
planet.
like that in other places as well, like Europe and other places. You've toured. It's like something about I don't know. U.S. can be a little bit, especially West Coast, can be a little stiff. Midwest is chill and fun, and everyone's having a good time. East Coast can be pretty wild, but it just depends where you go, right?
Depends on where you go. Depends on your
Depends on all
music.
kinds of things.
All types of
Yeah.
factors.
So many-
It
so
can be
many
like,
factors.
oh, you played this particular venue in the East Coast, then you're definitely gonna get like the statues, just people just like not moving.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we played that show, Retox in Ox played in Austin, and we're like, Austin! And the show fucking sucked super bad. And everyone's like, you do not play this venue ever. And we're like, I don't know. Like, and they're like, no, like, do you remember that? Like, it was
Wait, oh my gosh,
Terrible.
it's coming back to me.
It was like the worst.
Wasn't the venue on like the main?
Yeah.
Sta-
But
and
everyone's
everyone's-
like, you do not
That's
play here.
right.
Nobody will go here. And we're like, oh, this is really
Like it
crazy.
was a relevant venue maybe 5 or 6 years before.
Yeah, I
but,
guess.
But that year it was just
For
like
whatever the reason was. But I wonder,
remember
like,
that now.
Why? Yeah. But then I remember, like, when I met you at the Black Lodge, like, that shit is like, the Black Lodge is like ABC No Rio or the Che Cafe or the Smell. It's like one of
Totally.
those places where you're like, oh, this shit's special. Like,
It
you
is
can't-
special. Oh my gosh, you just saying that just like springs. I have a lot of emotions attached to that place. We live, we worked there.
Work.
Worked for over 10 years of my life dedicated to working there.
Right.
And it was just incredible, and just I'm so happy that it's able to continue in it's going to be a new version of it, but they're working that out right now. So
So
it's
different location?
Same location.
Oh.
Yeah.
We right now it's people are practicing there, ourselves included. People are no longer caretaking there, but they're going to be transitioning it into kind of a venue / space for some people.
Yeah, space and like art space.
An art space,
Yeah.
and just make sure that the community is taken care of, because all those places are gone.
Yeah. Black Lodge is
Gone.
probably like the last of his leg.
So why do you think they're leaving or going away?
Oh, sorry, who's going away?
Those kind of venues.
I think that they survived for a second, but for even us, we were there for surviving off the community was like, you can only ask the community so many times. You know what I mean? It's been 3 years, right?
Right.
Like almost 2.5. I don't even know, but it's just been a long time, and it's really hard to sustain something. It took something else to kind of come in and help breathe life. But these other places, maybe not so lucky. You can only go as long as you can go until the well runs dry.
Yeah.
And then you have to. But I will say that again, silver lining, the ones that were inner city that are no longer able to sustain are popping up now on the outskirts.
Yeah.
They
A
are.
lot of people are moving to just different districts and
Yeah, like different
like
outs-
South Seattle.
Exactly, outskirts
Yeah.
of Seattle.
There was some documentary on I don't know exactly what it was, maybe like Southern California venues, and they were talking about, it was the owner of a bar I don't want to say the name because it might not be the right one, but basically they were closing down, and in the documentary because of the pandemic. So in the documentary they were saying like, how do you feel about losing your business? And he's like, it sucks, but he's like, I don't really care, because what'll happen is it's gonna make me and everybody go back to doing like house shows, and we're gonna and it'll start back from square one, and we'll create something new and better, and we have the knowledge of what we did before. And it was a really interesting kind of perspective to kind of look at things, because now it's like it does feel different playing a show where like before the pandemic it seemed like people were kind of just like not that impressed or not not that appreciative or whatever, and now it's like, fuck, I thought we weren't gonna have this again, and then it's back to like rad and gnarly and fucking crazy shit, and that's maybe back to the silver lining thing I was talking about earlier.
It's a kind of beautiful, and I think it does that change. Also forces new look. For in this example, you have people who caretake for 10 years. It's really easy to start to lose perspective. It's nice to get new, fresh blood in there with fresh eyes, and then they're going to be able to start to like create. It's just something new, and it's also good. It's just good to pass the baton as well, and let like the next crew.
What do you think? Like the the Black Lodge is an interesting place. Like, because I feel like. Either I totally lucked out every time I played there with whatever band, but like I feel like whatever happened there was just awesome, like it didn't really matter who the fuck was playing. It was just gonna be awesome.
I think it's just the energy of the space. I think the fact that it's not like a bar. I think the fact that it was just, it's a destination place to people who come there are there for music. They're not coming for a scene. They're not coming for drugs and out. It's like they're coming there because they really want to be in that moment in space and time. They prefer that space over like your typical venue, and it's something, like you said, it's almost impossible to put to words. It's just something you feel. But like you said, there are like venues that we all experience around this country and outside of this country. They're precious, and we should do everything we can to make sure that they survive in some way, even if they physically move to another location. Just the essence of that should always be. We should always support it.
Well, yeah, like do you know Quintron and Miss Pussycat? Do you guys know who they are?
No.
Organ player.
No.
I thought maybe you guys might have. They have he's an organ player, and they do a puppet show together, and they're awesome.
A puppet show, yeah.
But they're from New Orleans, and they have this place called the Spellcaster Lounge, which is part of the house, it's a venue. But one of my bands played it at Spellcaster Lounge, and it was the wildest show. I felt like I was in a fucking circus, and not a single person there was there to see our band, and like they just didn't, not that they didn't care about our band, they were just like, we're just here, and then we're gonna enjoy what's happening regardless of whatever it was. And I was like, fuck, I mean, that's some rad shit, because then you can't have an ego. Like, they don't give a fuck. They're not gonna buy your record. They just want to go nuts.
They just want to perform
and create that
Be
energy
in the moment.
And like that was.
Those are my favorite shows. My favorite shows are not ever. They're never the ones that are like, I fucking hate. I don't know how you guys feel, but I'm like, 1,000 people. I don't care. Yeah. What I care about is like that nasty basement show in the middle of like Minnesota, and like the kids are just like, ah! And then it's like you could touch people, and someone's spitting on you accidentally. I don't know. Maybe I'm spitting on them, but it's just that exchange. That's the shit you remember. Those are the shows I remember.
But I see these photos of you, and I'm like, COVID, watch out.
I know, and so I know. I'm trying to.
Even last night, I played a show, and I was like, fuck, I just spit. I shouldn't have spit. Like,
dude, it's so hard to trust me. I've done one really. Yes, I'm not gonna go there, but yes, it's really hard when you're.
You gotta go there. You've done really one.
When you're a hands-on, like you are this way. You're one of the people that You're one of my people I've always like looked at and I've drawn inspiration from. There's a few, and you're one of them. But it's the ability to go out. I never understood. You could just go out. You're not on stage. You don't have to stay on stage. You can go and touch people. And you used to do this thing where you put a chair in the middle of the room. I don't know if did I imagine that, but like, I think I recall it. And you would come out and you'd get up on the chair. It's like you created your own space. You created your own construct of reality. And I loved and appreciated that so much because it opened me up. So the counter of that is, now that I'm all up on that shit, now I'm like, how the fuck do I do this without like getting close to people now and like grabbing them and touching them? And so I don't know. It's hard. I definitely can't do it with a fucking mask on. I cannot get. Do you scream through a mask?
No.
Oh yeah, it's impossible. I can't breathe. But it's,
That's a weird one with the mask thing. I just saw that Adolescents
weird.
play, and I was not impressed. I'm not really a fan, but I went and saw a show, and the Adolescents played the show. I wasn't there to see them, but the singer sang through a mask, and he constantly was like pulling the mask back up, and I was just like, dude. And it was like there was a barricade. It was a big fucking venue. I'm like,
Sure.
just take the mask off, dude, and just or like back up or whatever.
Or
I don't know, like it
or
just,
don't do this, or don't sing.
just
like,
seemed kind of weird.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, I haven't seen people. I've seen people perform in mask, but not sing.
Sing, yeah.
It's like you definitely utilizing your respiratory system. So
Yeah.
well, I choke like when that thing, like I don't know, maybe I'm a heavy breather,
It's like-
but like yeah, I like it was like
You're choking
inverts
on-
like every time. So I do like you know, but it triggers like some childhood asthma shit for me. Like I don't know, it's not good, but you probably have seen me trying to figure out how to adjust to like kind of being on stage more, maybe.
no, you're pretty much a natural. Like, I think you're just probably in your head with that. But,
I'm in my head a little bit with it. I'm
Yeah.
still trying to like.
no, I think
Like
you,
while you're playing, you're in your head. I never. Like,
No, I'm more in my
yeah.
head. No, I'm not. Definitely not in my head when we're doing the thing. I'm totally disassociated
Yeah,
when it starts till it ends.
Yeah, I
But-
can see that for sure.
But you get that like before. You can see that for sure.
There's something like she clearly is not.
yeah.
thinking
no,
at all.
I have
What
this ongoing joke where I talk about how like energetic like front persons and performers have to like psych themselves up and slap themselves in the face, and they're just like whew, and like doing all these like voice exercises and just like, you know, moving their arms around and like running in place or whatever, and she's just like on her phone zoned out or just like chilling, just being nice, cordial Lisa, and then soon as like music starts, it's like instant possession.
Oh yeah.
But
It's
you
the
get
first
that.
snare hit. The first snare hit. It's like
First snare
gone.
hits, possession,
Yeah.
and then like no longer possessed right as like the last song is ending.
Yeah.
It's just like you see like the world like coming back to like reality. It's really, and I can say this from like not being in the band and catching y'all like early on
Before you joined
before I
them.
joined. I was like, oh, that's clearly possession, in like, you know, the right way, not like evil possession.
Yeah.
Just in terms of like you disassociating.
Yeah, I was just thinking about what is that. I don't know. I think. Do you feel this way? Did you collect sort of an amalgam of impressions from performance artists or, you know, front people that you were inspired by, that you had thoughts about it and like, oh, that's cool, and then you always do your own thing, but do you have anyone that inspired you as a
You know, like growing up, I was obsessed with a handful of performers, and I think it was like, I just think I really appreciated their art, or it affected me in some way, and then it was like in retrospect, I was like, fuck, that's kind of like so and so, or if someone would say like, you know, there's been, I don't want to list someone, but someone's like, oh, you have like this luxe interior thing, which I'm like, what the fuck? Like that's like the Pope of whatever,
Right,
you know, like
right.
no, but thank you, or like Darby Crash or whatever, you know, whatever, I don't know, like the antics, you know, or even like, I mean, like even like how I play bass physically, like people are always like, you have like this you know, stage presence, and I'm like, I don't know, it just happens. But then I'll look at it and be like, oh, it's kind of like this thing. It reminds me of like so and so, you know.
Yeah.
So maybe it is like my influence. It's subconscious, you know, or
Totally.
subconscious. Like I don't think it out. Like I want to be like this. It's just
Right.
like, oh, this shit just happened, and oh, I guess it's kind of like that.
you
or
just
whatever.
pick it up? Do you have
Yeah.
anybody that inspires you or like influences you, like a actual performer?
Nah, I can't really think of like a particular one, but you know, yeah.
But there's difference, like there's your technical, like this is how I play bass,
Right, 'cause
or
I
like
think-
this is my performance, and
Right.
my vibe is different.
And I also think it depends on the band, because
Yeah.
I've been in punk bands, I've been in country bands, I've been in like metal bands. Right now I'm in a heavy like hardcore punkish band with noisy elements, and so like, yeah, I think it just really depends. Depends on like how I'm playing bass,
Yeah.
like, because that also dictates like what type of energy I put. Because if I'm like being super technical, I'm probably not moving around as much.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm more concentrated on like getting those like notes and accents locked in. But if I'm just
real.
like playing with a pick and not my fingers,
Yeah.
then I'm able to like let loose a little more. I'm actually able to like wear my bass a little lower.
Wait, so you play with a pick and with fingers?
With
depending?
this project, just pick.
Oh,
Yeah, but I've like traditionally played with my fingers on other projects.
interesting.
Yeah. You just get more like attack and drive.
Yeah.
As
When
you
you're
know.
playing
Yeah.
with a pick. And
I
just,
took
like,
one bass lesson when I was a kid, and the teacher was like, "Oh, you can't play with a pick," and I was like, "What? Sid Vicious plays with a pick?" You know, I don't know, or like whatever. No, I don't think it was Sid Vicious. I was really into No Means No. That's like one of my
God.
favorite bassists.
Yes, same.
Yeah,
Love that
and I don't
band.
actually know if he even plays with a pick. I'm pretty sure he does, but regardless,
does.
yeah, okay. But
Yeah.
I was just like, picks, like that. I want to play with a pick, and so I never went back to the lesson, and I never learned shit. I just fucking started a band, and that was it, you know. But
Okay.
you know that is crazy though, like to think about the because that this whole like the topic of your the way you perform is very interesting because the Locust did a tour with Dillinger Escape Plan, who is probably the most fucking insane band live.
Right.
And I remember going on tour with them and thinking like, there's no possible way we could, you know, like it's not like a competition when you're on tour with a band, but you're just
I know
like,
what you mean.
they're going crazy and we're gonna go fucking crazy and everybody's just gonna be crazy. They were just doing shit that was like beyond, and we're like, well, we can't do that because we have pedal boards and we can't like jump off of our amp because we have to all sing and play pedal boards. So
Right.
so we instinctively started taking without realizing it. I feel like looking back, I was like, we just became like Devo, you know, like moving all like angularly and like a robot, you know.
Right,
like
right.
I clearly can't go fucking ape shit like
Right.
Ben Wyman, like backflipping and stuff. So I'm gonna just act like a fucking robot, and like that's cool, and we'll do our own thing, and they'll both be equally to some people, you know, whatever, like weird,
Entertaining
or interesting, you know.
Yeah.
And so you have your own thing. I think that's
Yeah.
important.
I think it is too, and I think it's cool that, you know, everyone you tour with, you're gonna pick up something new.
Yeah.
You're gonna see something. You're gonna see a way they're doing something. But definitely, every person I've shared the road with, I've probably been inspired by something they've done.
But you know, as
Someone.
much as I love Lux Interior, I you know, I'm not gonna wear fucking high heels and stick the microphone down my pants, you know. But
Right.
but I'll take it. I watched the shit out of that band, you know, and I've seen them play. And but like, so for, like as a front person, what do you think, like where's your thing coming from? Because you got some crazy shit that goes on, and I don't know where
That comes from.
do you think that like traces back to as far as a performance side of things?
I was trying to think of some. Well, again, like I said, anyone I've ever toured with. So, you know, the thing with you and the chair, like, always stuck out in my head. I just, because before that, I just didn't think about using things as props inside the venue.
But you could do whatever you want.
But you can do, and I didn't. You gave me that first, like, oh, you can build a set. I can build my own stage. I can. So now, it's because of that, you know, proximity to you, like, when I go to a venue, I look around.
Oh, yeah.
And now I assess everything, and I'm like, I could stand on that. I can do that. Remember that even in San Francisco,
Right.
I said, Brian, can you just push your pedal board back just a little bit so that I can get to that, you know, whatever area. You know, it's just like you start to see where else can I go in this space, or what props can I use to create. That was the big thing with you, is like I can actually create my own stage with a chair.
I would just go
never
in
thought
other
of
rooms
that.
and shit. Like I remember we played this really crappy show somewhere, and there was another show happening next door at the same time. I'm like, fuck this. And I had a
that's
really
right.
long mic, and I went into the other room, and it was crazy because like the other band stopped, and then I just come in there fucking screaming shit.
I love that. Was the other
But
thing.
it got everyone from. It got all these like.
Oh my God.
It got all those people to come
You
over.
just seriously made me remember that I've took that from you. I do that. I would leave the venue. Remember
Yes.
when
You ever done it in the bathroom? That's a good one.
I think I have opened the bathroom door, but
You've opened the bathroom door.
and then there was
people's,
this
like,
one time
walked
I
in and
opened the
out.
front door of the venue.
Oh, this is
screamed
great.
outside, and then told these, like, I waved to these people to come in,
Yeah.
and then I made out with someone's grandma.
This is
Wow.
factual.
in front of, and this actually happened.
Yeah.
Like they all came in, and then like the grandma was like starting to just like rage, and then I just like grabbed her and I made out with her.
Yeah.
That's like, what is that? That's not even like Gigi Allen style. That's
I don't. That's some else. There's some other fetish
that
going
was
on. I don't know.
in Port Angeles. That was an
Port Angeles.
amazing show.
But that I just realized, like, you until you see something happen, you may not realize it's possible or something. And so it's, and to your point, you don't do it consciously. It's just, it's in there.
Yeah.
You know, like through assimilation, you just pick these things up, and then they can sometimes, it prompts you and it gives you a permission, if nothing else. So thank you. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
But it could backfire. There's
for
been
sure.
some fucking terror. Like I had this Retox toured with
backfire.
Bronx, and I was like, you know, they put on a fucking great show, and I was like, I remember thinking like, you know, fuck this is gonna be bad. Like I'm just gonna get a really long mic cable, and I'm gonna cruise into the bathroom, and I'll just sing from the bathroom. And I had this like spiel about like politics. It was something about like, I think it had something to do with whatever political administration. And I said this thing, and we started playing, and I just went to the bathroom, and I remember getting inside. And all these people followed me in, and then the door closed, and then I was like, it was in this tiled bathroom, and I was like, holy fuck, I can't hear the music anymore, and just hear myself yelling in this bathroom, and then I couldn't get out, and I was like, this sucks, and then it was
Because they were all in there with you.
like, you know, like some couple people taking photos, and it's like, this is awesome and funny, and I'm like, no, this sucks, I gotta get back out there, because I cannot hear any of the music, you know?
And maybe that's the difference too, is that the music, this thought just came to my head, which is the music will be what it is, right? It's going to be the consistent factor that, and so that's one side. But then I think if you're performing and you're front person, you can bring a little bit of something special to each show.
Oh yeah.
And that's the counterweight to that. It's like that creates that perfect hybrid experience for the viewer because they're getting something unique.
Yeah.
I think that unique experience also happens. You can't pre-think that. That has to just be happening in that moment. And that is probably the thing I love most, is if I'm as a viewer, and maybe even a person from the other side of that coin, the performer, is that we created that unique experience for them that night, and only they got to experience it.
But what if you compromise? Because sometimes you end up compromising the sound for a performance. So you gotta
Elaborate.
It's like a good example is like when, you know, I mean, last night I played a show and the fucking PA went out, and it's like, what am I gonna do? Like, I'm the singer, and this microphone is not working. What do I do for this? At least the rest of this song, you have to do something. And I don't even know what happened, but you know, you have to do something. You're as a like, you kind of like lose control. I mean, I don't know. I remember I would always, my first couple bands were with this guy Jose Palafox, who would just lose his fucking shit as a drummer, and he's punching his drums and running away and shit, and you're like, dude, we gotta finish the fucking set, like, what are you doing, you know? But it's like, at that point, it's not even musical, it is a performance, and those are the things that really last. Those are the things that affect you, where I'm like, that motherfucker just took off, you know?
That's quite different,
You know?
I think.
That
I think
is.
that the music has to hold it. I feel like that has to continue, if nothing else. It can disintegrate.
Does it have to, though?
It can disintegrate, though. To your point, it can. I like it when it falls apart at the end. I like it when it completely deconstructs
yeah.
at the very last moment, and it just goes, I don't even, like, to the point where nobody even knows what's going on
Yeah.
anymore. It's just pandemonium.
Well, like The Who or Nirvana or something, you know, whatever, they trash all their shit. Like, that's kind of like...
or whatever it
yeah.
is.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah, sure.
But mid-show, it would be weird, I
Yeah.
guess, to have it fall apart.
I mean,
But when it comes back, though... Like,
but when it comes back and you come back stronger,
Yeah.
it's because I've seen it happen a myriad of ways where you see a band where, like, okay, the drummer dropped a stick and then like that loses its momentum, but then
come back hard.
if he comes back hard and it's like, oh, okay, there we go, the rhythms like sync back up. But that only works if like music's still continuing.
Yeah.
But if everyone else just like stops, then it's just kind of like.
But the
this,
music
like,
doesn't have to
abrupt-
continue. If you have
Yeah.
like some sort of telepathy or you're connecting shit.
It also depends on like the performance
you mean.
itself. And I'm picking up what you're putting down. It all depends on like the performance.
Yeah.
Because
when
if you
you're
just see
on-
someone looking like too confused and everyone on stage is just like, I don't know what's happening. Now you just like threw that and then like the audience mind because they're like, oh, now I
They
don't know
can
what's
pick up.
happening.
The audience can. I
But
can't.
if there's like weird like train wreck parts, and then people are just like, we're still just moving like this, even though there's no music to be had, then people are like, okay, we're with you.
They'll go with you.
We're with you as soon as you like drop in, and now we can all get back on track. But
maybe you have to be like hyper aware of the other players.
I think
you were
able
talking
to
about like
connect.
psychic energy almost. Like
Yeah.
you guys are really tapped into each other, and I think I'm hoping everyone gets to experience that because we've all been there in that moment where we are experiencing that synchronicity.
Yeah.
And you're just going with it, and you even look kind of side eye each other, and we're like, "Are we doing this?" Like, and
that's
you just,
important. Those things are really important.
Yeah.
This is the thing that Luke and I talked about. We had this band Planet B where we didn't have.
Oh,
we weren't
yeah.
really focused on like. Because we didn't have like drumming and stuff, and we didn't have like real normal instrument. Like he plays the 2 MPCs. So for me, I look over and there's like he's just pushing buttons, and I'm like fuck, like I need a physical thing. I need you to fucking I need it. So we have 2 drummers now that are pretty. They give off the energy, and that way you have like the cues. You're like, okay, here we go. Like because there are times where in a live performance setting you need to kind of all connect to something physical.
100%. I remember being on tour with another band, and there was just this moment where the the PA, I think it was we were in Paris, and the PA was way too loud. Like I'm sure we've all been there, but all you can hear is yourself. So you like cannot even connect to anything else, and it was just it was like fucked up. And so I was just like trying to wave like someone to come help me, like but then I was like, this is fucked. And then when they saw me go, this is fucked, they just turned it up even louder.
Whoa.
And so then I was like, stop. And I'm like, I need to stop motioning. And so finally I had to like kick it away, and then I had to stare at the drummer, and I was just following what I could see and not what I could hear, because it was just, I don't know if that had anything to do with what we were just talking about, but
the visual cues are really important.
I just had, just like,
Yeah.
Just had to connect.
But then you like get pissed and you're just way more passionate.
I was so
you know?
mad.
But you probably played like so badass. You're just like fucking, like that's when this shit gets intense.
Yeah. I do think that I was just thinking about intensity, but I was also thinking about sometimes, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but getting so feral that you're losing control of, and we've talked about this a lot, somewhere finding a balance between, because I could sometimes throw my vocals out if I'm not super cognizant of like where I am with that. So you almost have to tap in for that control, because I don't use any effects to push the vocal. It's all just raw, usually going through the PA. But I don't know. Have you ever had your voice go out, or like had any issues with being too feral and not controlling enough when you're doing your screams and stuff? I'm just curious from one person who screams to another.
Yeah, well, my main problem is that I have chronic bronchitis. So when there's like shit on my throat and like sinus drainage and stuff, like it just fucks everything up.
Yeah.
But luckily we're in bands that kind of don't necessarily rely on like pitch and tone. It's just more about like, I guess, the aggression or something, or the projection of the intensity. There's times where I'm like, that sounds like garbage, or I fucking can't even speak right now. Even right now when I'm talking, I can feel it from last night, and
you could feel it
a little bit. But I also have been taking these steroids because I have sinus infection,
Yeah.
And that sucks too. So I mean, those times I'll come here to try to record with Luke, and I'm like, dude, I can't. My allergies are terrible. I can't. I have all this post-nasal drippage. But other than that, like throwing it out, I mean, I think for whatever reason, it doesn't get thrown out from like projecting too much.
Right. Yeah, I think that I've had to like definitely adapt to a few things, like going to the bathroom before the show and like just trying to like get shit like in gear, like warm up. But more, it's about control during the like I've noticed that for all the disassociation I do have to kind of like get in there every once in a while and get a little bit of control, because I have a tendency to just go and not pay attention enough as much as I should.
But also being used to playing like shitty venues with bad PAs and no monitors, and then you don't know what, level you're projecting. You know, that is a problem.
You push so hard because
Yeah.
you're just trying to hear. Yeah.
But then I always have these sound engineers like, get in-ears. I'm like, dude, it's just weird, and I don't know.
Do people
and
tell you to get in-ears as a screamer?
all the time? my
told
fear
you
is that
that?
I'll lose
No
them.
one's ever.
People always tell me, you should get them. You should get them.
But you've heard it, and it sounds so weird, right?
That, and also I'm afraid I'll just lose them. I don't know.
Because they're probably really expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that.
I don't know. There's so many levels of stuff to a performance, and I don't know. Maybe you compromise and find out what is.
Yeah.
It's
Just
like
play
there's
around.
100% of something. So there's the visual or the experience and the audio, and like where do we go? Is it 60/40?
I think that's where I was going with that.
Yeah.
It's like trying to find that balance, you know, and make sure that the output is good, but also don't lose it. I don't want to lose the intensity. So.
Yeah. I mean, I want to go see a band and be like, they sounded awesome. I really love that. But I also know I can go listen to them and sound awesome on their record.
Right.
And I want to see a performance, and I want there to be this crazy, you know, energy coming from something that I can't get from putting a record on. You know.
Yeah.
Those are really important.
I appreciate.
And you
that.
guys fucking deliver. I mean, the live show is definitely something that you can't experience any other way.
Yeah, I would hope so, and I would
Yeah.
hope that we just keep. I'm always interested in what's the next thing too. Like, you know, just thinking about evolving in different ways or playing around or, you know, experimenting
Yeah,
and
like, what's the next trajectory towards like the show itself?
Yeah.
Yeah, not necessarily like antics, but just like what kind of performance we're gonna deliver for like whatever music we end up creating next.
I always think about world building and mood setting, and I think we were just at a cattle show, and they had, I mean, it was all red lights, and there was a little bit of fog, and then they had the banners, and they were kind of like just like glow in the dark red blood shit, and I don't know, just something. They set the scene, right?
Yeah.
And then they brought it, and then I was like, you know, I was thinking like, how do I create like some of this world building? Like, how do I tap into that? As maybe like the next thing to consider on top of everything else that's going on.
I mean, when you're so like a cattle performance like that couldn't translate at, let's say, the Black Lodge or the Che Cafe or something, but it could translate in a larger venue. So when
Where
you
they
get
can
to
support all that.
the infrastructure for something, because that is an interesting point to where you're not compromising, but you're changing out like this set of aesthetic for this other set of aesthetic, and like which one can we use to adapt to this situation?
Right.
That's a good point. Like, you're not going to pull that shit out for every place. Like, if you're like at a house show, you're not going to have the banners, you know. But yeah, I've been thinking about that lately. That's always a good thing to consider.
And also the non-musical stuff. Like a good example would be like Dillinger Escape Plan Again, when they used to have fucking flamethrower or fire breathing.
That's it.
And
Wait,
it's like,
they had fire? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Greg would do fire breathing, which was like,
Oh my god.
you're just like, that's fucking totally wild. But like in a venue now, you probably shouldn't do that, you know?
Right.
You know?
I was just gonna say,
know.
like, yeah.
But, and not to keep talking about them, but like there's that footage of them playing in like a Virgin Megastore. I don't know if you guys seen it, where like,
Yes,
I mean,
I
it is
have.
like,
Yeah.
that's, if you want to fucking get inspiration, like whoever's listening to this podcast should just Google that. It fucking blew my mind when I watched that set. Like inside of this mall, the song starts and Greg is like, clearly he's like at the escalator, fucking
Right.
way across the mall, on top of people's heads.
It's a pretty phenomenal
It is-
performance.
It is like
I've
the
never
most,
seen. I'm gonna have to
Yeah,
watch
you
it.
could
when you
check
watch
that
it, you're
out.
gonna be like, oh fuck, watch that. You know, like it'll translate somewhere in your performance, and you'll be doing some crazy shit hanging from something, or I don't know what you'll be doing.
I
but-
did appreciate being at their last show in New York, and I seeing them hang. I mean, they went, of course, all out, and it was, you know, a couple days at least. I think it was 2 days, but yeah, getting inspiration from people who I'm still like see the visual of them hanging from this rat, like from up, and people like just reaching to like hold on, but they fucking bring it like nobody else. But how do they do that? How do they do all that with like also a guitar? I don't know.
With the technical proficiency.
Just doing it all the time forever.
Just
and just
that's
getting,
part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
You almost said it's really cute.
I did. I always fuck me.
I think
Can be.
yeah. Ben would definitely embrace the cute, it being cute.
It's so cute.
Yeah.
Cult and Culture is a Ruinous Media podcast, proudly sponsored by Earthquaker Devices, Heartwork Coffee, Fender, and Diodario.
Planet B.